Welcome to the Bible Belt Bros podcast. Happy Sprinter, everyone.
Wow, this has been crazy. You're right. Sprinter's a good word for it.
It's pulled up on a Facebook meme right now, so I wouldn't forget. But it's Sprinter. It's I woke up Saturday morning with snow on the ground, and I was like, "This is pretty weird."
So in one day we had rain, thunderstorms, snow, sleet, ice,
and an earthquake. Yeah. So welcome to Oklahoma for those of you that don't live in Oklahoma.
A big earthquake. It was a 4.6.
Yeah, I didn't feel it, but
so
it exists. I guess.
I felt the one that was at 4:45 in the morning. So I felt this gust of wind go over my chest while I'm sleeping, and I just sit straight up and I reached for my gun because then our small dog started going crazy, and I was like, you know what? I need to check on Izzy. She's out in the living room. So I went out into the living room, and then my big dog, went nuts and went straight to the door. And I was like, all right, what's going on? So I let the dogs out, and I was like, I'm going to let them out. I'm going to go back in my room, get my gun. And, yeah. I stood there for a second, listened, didn't hear anything. I was like, all right, the dogs aren't barking. They're not going nuts. I don't think there's any murderers out there.
So you must have just passed gas.
Speaking of murder. Just kidding.
We'll talk about some murder later. I got some stories.
Whoa. That's weird, but okay. So then I waited for the dogs. I brought them back in. Then I was like, I could not figure out what that gust of wind that went over my chest was. It was so weird. Then Lisa woke up and was like, did you feel the earthquake? And mind you, I had checked on Lisa. She was not awake at all. She was sawing logs. And I just ignored her. I was like, how did she know about an earthquake? I was like, that must have been what that was. That was an earthquake. Sure enough, I get on Facebook later, and yep, people are talking about earthquakes.
I've only felt a couple of the earthquakes. One, when Shay and I lived in Tulsa, it shook it happened while we were watching the news. So you saw the people on the news start freaking out, and then our walls were shaking, and the pictures and stuff were shaking on the wall. It was kind of crazy. It was a pretty strong one. And then there's another one. They seem to happen in the morning a lot when I'm usually still in bed. But I was laying in bed, and I could hear it. It sounded like a crash, and then it's just a rumble. And I was like, that is crazy.
So, yep, I heard the one that you're probably talking about because I've only felt one before this one. But, yeah, I don't know if it was the fact that I was just, in my dead sleep, and so I was in that tranquil state, and so I felt it or what. But it was so weird because it felt literally like somebody was blowing all over my chest. And, yeah, it was so weird.
And that normally would turn you on, but since you were confused.
Yes. I completely freaked out. I about shot air.
Air. Nothing. It could have been a ghost.
The Holy Ghost? You're right. It was the Holy Ghost.
Well, I was just thinking, because there's a ghost hunting course class in Tulsa every Tuesday in May. It's $50. Well, but I just thought of that, when you're saying it could have been
my uncle's a ghost hunter. Well, he wouldn't be my uncle. He'd be a cousin. I have a cousin who's a ghost hunter, and he has his own TV show, the Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
Hollywood Ghost Hunters? Huh.
Yep. And matter of fact, I'm going to name drop a little here. His best friend is Kane Vodder, and Kane Vodder.
Oh my gosh!
Kane Vodder is also. Oh, you'll know him in just a second. Kane Vodder also ghost hunts with him on his show. Kane Vodder was Jason, Friday the 13th.
Oh, really?
Yep. So now, do you know who Kane Vodder is?
Kind of. So can we appear as Hollywood special guests now with the podcast, successful podcast with over 100 listeners? Does that qualify us to be on that show?
I doubt it.
Okay, cool. Well,
especially since I've never met this cousin. I've only talked to him on Facebook.
So make a call or a
Facebook message.
Or a Facebook message. And otherwise, I'm going to have to just go to this paranormal investigator and founder of Tulsa Spirit Tours.
He went down to Well, so my cousin, he still does movies. He was just down in Australia doing a movie not too long ago. But then when he came back from Australia, he was touring all over the world doing ghost hunts. He was in Ireland and Scotland, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, he was just all over doing ghost hunts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I probably won't go to this class because that's $50.
You ever heard of Naked Gun 33 in the Third?
Yeah, that's a
With,
movie.
Leslie.
It was on VHS.
Yeah, my cousin was in that. I think he was actually a stuntman in that.
How old is your cousin? That's a pretty old movie.
He's in his 50s. It'd be a cousin, like second removed or first removed. I don't know how that all removed stuff works out.
By adoption or by...
No, biological.
Biological.
It'd be on my biological father's side.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting. Speaking of murder... Well, we didn't speak of murder.
No, we did speak of it.
Let's
We
segue.
skipped it.
Ghosts are because of...
People being murdered?
People being murdered. So, speaking of murder... Good segue. So, speaking of murder, quick story, Andrew. Remember,
You never have a quick story.
That's pretty much true. In 3 years ago, 2 years ago, somewhere, we decided to start a podcast.
Wow, we did.
Which is when
Why did we start this podcast?
Well, speaking of murder, Andrew, there was a podcast called Serial that was very popular. Like one of the most popular podcasts.
Everybody would not shut up about it.
Yeah, and so that's how I learned about podcasting, and I listened to that podcast.
You know, I've never listened to that because it was such a fad.
Well, now it's not a fad, but news. Introducing new updates, story updates.
No, you're bad at that.
We need sound effects. We need to figure something out. So the podcast Serial, little quick overview of it for you. Update. Well, overview first of what the podcast was about. It was about these high school ex-boyfriend and girlfriend.
See, this is why I never had to watch it. Because people
you
like
don't
you
watch podcasts.
Or listen to
you
it.
listen to podcasts,
because
Andrew.
People like you would never shut up about it.
Well,
all right, go ahead.
Could you just let me? If you make me start over 50 times, and so I don't even get
You're
through
like my
story.
daughter.
Okay.
You can't pick up where you left off. You always have to go back to the beginning and tell it.
Speaking of murder, Andrew. Okay, so the podcast was about a high school boyfriend and girlfriend. Well, they're exes.
I bet somebody got murdered.
The girlfriend was murdered. She was
called it.
Strangled or something. And
I bet the boyfriend did
buried in Lincoln Park, Baltimore area. Okay, which recently in the news, did you see where the Baltimore cop accidentally recorded himself planting drug evidence? He turned his camera on accident, recorded himself planting drug evidence, evidence used against him. Anyways, so kind of a still corrupt police department now. So, anyways,
it's Baltimore. They have a corrupt mayor, corrupt chief. Everything's corrupt in Baltimore.
Exactly.
You're from Baltimore? I'm not sorry.
Can I finish my story? Go
no,
Orioles.
because I have fun interrupting you.
Oh gosh. So the girl ends up murdered. They obviously suspect the boyfriend.
That's who I suspected.
Yeah, that's who you'd always do it. Like Shay and I were talking today. Like I can't have a conceal and carry because I would end up shooting myself or accidentally shooting Shay. And Shay and I have so many text messages joking about killing one another that then that would be used against me.
If I ever ended up dead, they're suspecting you.
Me? What did I do?
You've just been my boyfriend for so long.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, ex-lover. Golly. That is not true, just for the record. Okay.
They will be like, you were no longer able to win the newlywed game, so you murdered him.
Yes, exactly. The big part of the evidence was a key witness who was a drug dealer in the area.
Baltimore and a drug dealer?
Exactly.
Nuh-uh.
Who apparently basically said Adnan did it. And
who?
His name is Adnan Syed, so Muslim. So
he did it.
That's another thing into the story. And so this drug dealer basically gives the timeline of what happened. Well, then the evidence doesn't match the timeline, so he has another interview where he changes his story to match the timeline. And multiple times he's done that. Anyway, so this podcast comes out, puts a little picture of, it's not necessarily saying that he didn't do it, it's just saying that there's more suspects to be looked at, and his story and everything matches up. People saw him at the school when this girl was murdered and all this stuff. Come back now, finally, years and years and years after the podcast has even come out, and it was like another 10 or 15 years that guy's already been in jail. He's getting a retrial for the bad evidence and evidence that was used against him that was not correct. So, really interesting. So maybe, Andrew, you should listen to that podcast now.
I don't need to. I already know what happened.
But you don't know all the crazy, like, you don't know, like, the drive, the amount of time it took to drive from the school to where she was murdered and all this stuff. And
How long did it take?
This was when people still had pay phones, when those still existed. Because supposedly he made a pickup call, like, the deal is done, kind of call through a pay phone. But, yeah. Anyways, very interesting story. I was like, man, podcasting, that's pretty cool. And I've always wanted to do, like, radio when I was a kid. And then now I'm like, I could never do radio because, like, the prime spots are the spots where I'm normally home, you know? Like, it's like if you wanted to be a weatherman. Like, if you're a weatherman, like, you want to do the 6 o'clock news because that's when everybody tunes into the weather.
I don't.
I don't want to work at 6 o'clock. I don't want to work at all, really.
I don't wake up at 6 o'clock. I'm not tuned into no weather at 6 o'clock.
I'm 6 p.m. is what I'm talking about.
Oh.
So that people, like, watch the nightly news, 6 p.m., what's the weather going to be like tomorrow, yada, yada, yada.
All right. Well, that's good. So we know you don't want to be a weatherman.
I don't want to be anything that requires me working at night.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of murder.
Speaking of murder, Andrew.
Our guest pastor had a very valid point today. You were there. I saw you today.
Yes, I was at church like I normally am every week.
It's crazy. I'm seeing you again, finally.
It's funny, you're not the only person that says that to me.
So you took off your, what's that cape people wear to disguise them, or invisible themselves?
The invisibility cloak from
the cloak.
From Harry Potter?
Yeah, that. You took off your invisibility cloak, and now people can see you.
Yeah, I'm naked. That's how they recognize me.
No.
Okay.
Anyway, so they're talking about, the difference. This pastor was telling us the difference between murder and manslaughter.
Okay.
And
what is the difference, Andrew?
Murder is premeditated. So if I am, I'm mad at you because you're cheating on me with your wife, and so I decide, you know what, I'm going to get even with him. I'm going to cook him dinner one day and ask him if he wants a drink, and when I go get a drink, I'm going to come back with a hammer and hit you upside the head. That's murder.
Yes. Okay.
Whereas if, I'm driving down the road at night and you're walking across the street and I accidentally run over you, it's manslaughter because It's an accident. I didn't mean to do it.
But you still have a consequence.
Yeah, there's still going to be a consequence. But it's not murder.
But it's not murder.
So,
correct.
When Jesus was on the cross, well, before that, let's back up. Was Jesus...
Remember how you were like, I hate when Dusty tells stories because he gets all sidetracked. It takes forever. Well, let's look at here, Andrew.
I have to try to... I'm talking slower than I normally do. One, if you can tell, I don't have my actual voice.
You're a little tipsy.
I am. I'm borrowing someone's voice today.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Is that why it's a little sexier than normal?
Yeah.
All right.
Because I lost mine. No. So, was Jesus murdered? I mean, everyone knew what was going to happen when they sent him to the king. The king sent him back. They knew what was going to happen. The people were going to vote to, kill him. They wanted him dead. They thought he was blasphemous. And so they knew what they were going to do. They knew they were going to crucify him. They knew that they were going to kill him. They put him up on that cross. They made him carry it. They whipped him with the cat of nine tails, all that. I know I'm out of order, but, all that stuff happened. But then when Jesus was up on the cross, Jesus said, Father, forgive them. For what?
They know not what they do.
Exactly. They didn't know what they were doing. Therefore, classifying it as manslaughter, not murder.
Gotcha.
And I just thought that was interesting. That was an interesting point he made, because our eyes, when we're in sin, our eyes are blinded to that. So we don't know what we're doing. But, we're a Christian podcast. We had to bring Jesus up somehow, right?
Right. So no other way or no better way to bring Jesus up than through murder.
Right, but I just thought that was a real interesting and valid point today. They didn't know what they were doing, so it wasn't murder; it was manslaughter.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Yeah, I liked how he talked about, what was the verse that he talked about with the
In Hebrew 18,
if you hate a brother,
you've already committed murder.
You've committed murder. Yeah, and
I think that was Hebrew 18.
Yeah, so he basically said, "How many of you guys been angry today, or angry this week?"
I think he just said angry. Period.
An angry period.
Everybody.
And so we all kind of struggle with that. And in Christ's eyes, in God's eyes, the standard is so high that is murder. It's not doing the act. It's thinking of just hating somebody. You're not even thinking of killing them. You just hate them. But that's murder, and that we have the same penalty.
So there's got to be a difference then between anger and a righteous anger.
Yes, because Jesus stormed the temple,
right, and overthrew the tables. He was angry, but it was more of a righteous anger because of how these tax collectors were taking the money and abusing it and misusing it. They were taking tithe money.
Maybe it was Jesus wasn't angry; he was just disappointed. Like, I'm not angry with you. I'm just disappointed right now.
I don't know. I've never flipped tables when I was
disappointed.
disappointed.
Look at all these sinners. Remember those?
Yes.
So, I thought the same thing, though. I mean, there is a righteous anger. The God of the Old Testament, he got angry to the Israelites. My wife and I were reading through the book of Exodus, like leading up to Easter, and man, there's a lot of times where God, like Moses, had to plead because God was like, "Listen, I'm just going to kill you guys off, and
kill you all.
I'll start something else."
Sodom and Gomorrah, he killed everyone there.
He finally did it. But
Noah's Ark, he killed everybody.
Yeah, so obviously there's a righteous anger.
I need to find out how to do this righteous anger. I like being angry.
You could just become a nice person, Andrew. You don't have to have an anger problem.
Mouth.
Don't hate me right now.
I am murdering you right now.
You start saying that every time you have an argument with Lisa, you can be like, I'm murdering you right now. Instead of I'm angry, I'm murdering you.
You're murdered.
You're murdered. Boom. You're dead. Literally. No, figuratively.
You're manslaughtered.
Yeah.
I accidentally killed you.
I accidentally killed you in my brain. I don't know if that would go well in a text, if she ended up being murdered.
No, I swear. I was just thinking about, icicles on the roof. And then I thought, Lisa walked out there, looked up, an icicle fell and went through her eyeball.
Yeah.
And killed her. It was manslaughter. It was an accident.
No, you don't want anything to do with it. So otherwise, you're in some trouble. You don't get that insurance money.
So, speaking of murder.
Speaking of murder.
Facebook has all these stupid quizzes on there,
Yeah.
Anyways, it was, I saw one was like, if you can answer riddle 2, you're most likely a psychopath. Of course, I got it.
Oh, what was the riddle? Something I could help you with?
No, I don't even remember it. Sorry.
Your short-term memory loss. Thank you, Afghanistan. Thank you, Obama.
Hey.
Or Osama.
And Obama.
And Obama.
Afghanistan is a beautiful country. I would love to go
From what
back.
you remember.
No. I mean, that I remember. It was beautiful there. I would love to go back. If war ever stops and there's peace over there, I would love to go back. Turn into a ski resort. Oh, yeah. So many mountains there.
So is it not all desert?
No.
Well, that's all you see on the news.
That's Iraq.
You just see the cat is on your car.
Stinking Ted.
Taking Ted home with you.
Ted don't like me.
Yeah. He's probably peeing on your
He's
car
marking his territory.
right now.
All right, well, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us this week.
Right. So just think of murder whenever you're basically murdering somebody when you're angry at them. And you
so don't be angry at your parents. 'Cause you don't want to murder your parents.
Or just go through with it because you already, in Jesus' eyes, murdered. No, don't.
I am in no way part of this podcast anymore. That is all Dusty's idea.
But thanks.
He is your accomplice.
Andrew's going out of town this week, so
I am.
I'll have a podcast that you guys are looking forward
it's
to.
gonna be fun.
People look forward to when you go out of town, Andrew, because I have people on that are not you. So I will.
Really? They'd probably like it if you weren't on here either.
Well, it's at my house, so suck it.
Yeah, well, our guest can just do it by himself.
Are you murdering me right now?
No.
Okay.
I was just replacing you with our guest.
That's basically murder.
No.
Yes.
I didn't kill you. I just locked you up in a dungeon.
Oh, by the way, just as a Fortnite update, my wife is playing Fortnite right now while we're podcasting.
Can we go one without talking about Fortnite, Dusty?
No.
Just one podcast. That's all I ask.
Whatever. You're the Fortnite king.
Just because I'm better than you at it
I'm
doesn't
just
mean
here.
we need to talk about it.
I'm just here. All right. Thanks.
By the way, I'm almost at 1,400. Bye.
See you
Have
guys.
a good one, guys.
Bye.